What's going on, everybody? We're back. We got episode number 39 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 19. I think it's 19, right? We got Blaydes versus Lewis. I almost just said Blaydes versus Volkov. Thanks for joining us. As usual, we're brought to you by Bet Online. If you want to get 50% bonus on your first deposit, enter the promo code CLUBSUB. And yeah, we'll take it away. We got a big fight card this week so far. Not any cancellations either. So we're going to go through 15 fights. We're praying that we don't have to go 2 hours on the podcast and have 3 of them fall out. But yeah, we'll jump right into it. Not the best name value we've ever had on this card, but yeah, it could be fun. And also, please smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. We'd really appreciate it. It does us a huge favor. I always forget to say this, but come on, guys. We're at 314. We can do a little better than that. I know we get more views than that every week. So some of you are not subscribing. So please do the right thing. But anyway, let's get into it. First fight of the night. We got Spivak taking on Jared Bandera. I don't really have too many thoughts here. I did take I noticed that 5 Dimes had plus 1140 for Bandera decision. I mostly think Spivak is the side. I think he's far better. He's far more proven. He's probably a top 10 to 12 heavyweight. And Jared Bandera is a contender, his debutant. But I mostly think the vast majority of Bandera's win condition here is landing a couple takedowns and riding out top time. Like, the only place where I have some questions about Spivak is his bottom game, because he got stuck down there for a while against Tybura. And so I don't think it's likely he gets knocked out. And with that being the case, like, plus 1150 seems a bit extreme. I put 0.3 units on it. Like I said, I think Spivak's probably the side from a value perspective, but I think it's definitely better than 1101. So, yeah. Luke, what do you think here?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you as well. I'm not the biggest Spivak guy in general, but I'm also not a big Jared Bandera guy. I'm kind of with you that's probably Bandera's path here to wrestle. He does come from a wrestling background, even though I don't think his wrestling from a technical perspective is very strong. He is a jiu-jitsu black belt, but I also don't really value his grappling very highly either. I kind of feel like it's actually one of the better spots for Spivak. I think he's the better technical boxer. His volume's higher. I think his gas tank, I think that's also an important factor in this fight. I think his gas is a little bit better, because I think Bandera's pretty much got 5 minutes, even if he is working more of a grinding type pace. So even if he does have success early, I'm not necessarily convinced he can keep that up over 15 minutes. But yeah, I don't hate the Bandera decision poke necessarily, John, just because, like I said, I'm not the biggest Spivak guy in the world. I think the value on him has kind of eroded away. If you're kind of able to jump in earlier when he was around minus 200, I think that was probably a decent angle. But yeah, I think it's pretty much Spivak kind of however he wants. But I think his most likely path here is to just kind of box Bandera up on the feet. So I think, from a parlay perspective, I think you could probably throw him in there. And he probably comes through. He's probably one of the more, I guess, confident reads I would have in the card. Just the price isn't great. So I think, yeah, I like Spivak.
Lex, how are you?
Yeah, kind of similar thoughts to Luke. I'm not playing Spivak, and I just kind of think the only thing that's really holding me off is the bottom game. If he is stuck on bottom underneath Jared, that's, obviously a huge problem here. But yeah, other than that, I think Spivak rolls here, just not touching it personally.
See?
Yeah, I don't hate that decision play that you made. It could just be a bunch of cage push. But I personally played Spivak knockout at plus 600. Bandera's hilariously hittable. So yeah, I mean, it's worth the stab. Spivak's kind of got him covered most places, and he's gonna have a cardio advantage. So I'm happy to stab plus 600 there.
Yeah, so we move on. We got Ayman Zahavi, Draco Rodriguez. I believe this is a rebook from either November or December. I had Zahavi plus 185, I think, the first time it was booked. I took him again here, 1 unit plus 160. Pretty much, like, it's kind of weird. Like, I see a lot of confidence in Draco Rodriguez, and I don't really understand why. Like, he seems reasonably talented, good guard, good submission game, but there's very little footage of him standing. I don't think he's a particularly good wrestler, to be honest. And so it's like, so what we all really know is that, he's athletic and he's a very good guard player and he's dangerous from his guard. Zahavi, on the other hand, he's nothing special. He's got massive, massive athletic deficits, but he's had competitive minutes standing with Ricardo Ramos and Vince Morales, both of whom I'd play pretty happily at evens against Draco, to be honest. And yet here he's a pretty significant underdog. And so it's like, does Draco have a grappling edge? Well, I mean, Zahavi is a black belt and pretty damn good jiu-jitsu. Like, I'd be legitimately shocked if Draco could submit him from guard here. And while I don't think Zahavi's got great wrestling, Draco accepts takedowns to attack submissions. And so it's like, I kind of think if Zahavi goes for takedowns, he's going to get them, and he can probably ride him out on top. And even on the feet, well, like I said, I don't rate Zahavi's athleticism, but like, what is Draco's boxing? It could be good. It could be shit. We really don't know. And so it's like, I'm getting a proven guy who's fought real competition at plus 160 against a guy who the only thing we know has an explosive submission game that probably is not going to work here. So yeah, I took a small poke at Zahavi here. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, no real strong opinion for me. I guess this is probably the fight that I just don't have the greatest read on in general, just for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. Some of the stand-up footage of Rodriguez is limited. He's, I guess I'd probably classify your submission over position type of guy. He's the guy who's going to kind of throw the kitchen sink at you on the ground. Crafty there, but you did bring up Zahavi's a black belt too. I'd say he's probably more positionally sound. More position over submission, but does have a decent sub game as well on the feet, more of a point fighter. But I guess the issue I have with him, despite actually, like you said, being competitive with Hamush, which I do give him credit for, is that his strike differential is negative 1.12. And so for being like a point fighter, my big thing is like, obviously, these guys aren't traditionally going to be high volume, but I just don't like how he's getting hit more often than not, and he's a guy who will kind of play the back foot. So, if Draco just does bring pressure on the feet, I think Zahavi could also win the optics. But like you said, I mean, that's kind of a big question mark from that component as well. So yeah, I don't have a really great read on the fight, but Zahavi just isn't really a guy that I want to back personally, but I definitely understand the angle. I think he's probably the value side as well, just because you have at least some more knowns, more battle tested, fought more proven guys. So yeah, I don't hate the play though.
Like, some of you.
Yeah, this is actually one of the 3 fights on the card that I actually have like minimal interest in, just because similar to Luke, I don't have a great read on it. I like Zahavi seems like he have decent wrestling, decent striking, but that, I don't know. That's about it, to be honest. Like, I'm just not super confident in Zahavi as a dog. But again, I wouldn't be playing Draco as a minus 200 favorite here, so just more of a pass.
See?
Yeah, I'm not playing like a side. I just played Zahavi by sub. It was plus 800. You could probably. I mean, I think Zahavi's the side. I don't know. I'm just kind of passing at the current price. But I think Draco kind of just isn't that good in general. I mean, I've watched both of his pro boxing fights, and I think that's kind of like what his background is. I guess is he comes from boxing background and kind of sucks at boxing, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean he's willing to kind of play guard and just go for some meme type submissions. So I think Zahavi is the better grappler. Honestly, the only reason I'm not playing Zahavi straight is I just kind of worry about the volume output on the feet. But yeah, I think Zahavi is the side. I think plus 800 is kind of wide because I do think that there's going to be some extended grappling sequences. So
yeah,
that's why real quick, John. I was actually just looking on FanDuel just because I see who's actually was bringing up the submission points. Fight ends in submission is plus 290.
Yeah, I mean that covers I don't think Zahavi's getting sub, but Draco does have a tight squeeze, so it could happen. I don't know.
Yeah, we move on. We got fun matchup, featherweight division. We got Chaz Skelly taking on Jamal Emmers. Luke, you want to start here?
Yeah, so I jumped in on this one a little early. Want to give a shout out to you, John, for kind of tipping me off to it and saying, why is Emmers sitting around 60% for as long as he was? I think it was for probably a 3.5 week stretch that he was, and we kind of saw him get steamed. Yeah, and I looked into it more, and I think it's a pretty solid spot for Emmers. I do respect the game of Skelly though, because he is a guy who I think is kind of consistently underrated, has came through in some spots. He's kind of your your scrambly grappler type of guy, despite, coming from a wrestling background. I still don't think his MMA wrestling is overtly great, but he does seem to, force grappling exchanges, whether that's, against the cage, standing backpacks, he'll roll for leg locks, and work to try to sweep and get on top from there, or take backs and whatnot. So I do respect the game of Chaz Skelly, but conversely with Emmers, I just think the edge for Emmers on the feet here is so massive. The volume, the speed, the athleticism, the power. He is a brown belt as well in jiu-jitsu, comes from a decent wrestling background. Actually, if you go back a bit, he actually beat Corey Sandhagen, I think it was like 5 years ago, but pretty much just wrestled Sandhagen to death. So that's kind of a little fun fact. But I actually do think it's a spot where if Emmers does want to wrestle, I think he can. We have seen Skelly grinded by guys like Bektic and Elkins and get out wrestled over the course of 15 minutes without really being in overtly a crazy amount of trouble. So I think Emmers has a path there as well. So to be able to jump in on that, around that 60% indication with it now sitting over 70, I think that kind of tells you all you need to know. I'm not counting out Chaz, like I said, I got to give him respect in his game, but I just think it's a spot for, the younger, fresher guy to be, the quote unquote scrapper. He actually has retired at one point and kind of came back. So I feel like he's kind of on the back nine as well. So I think it's a good spot for Emmers.
Lax, how about you?
Yeah, I got on this a little later, but I still think it's a solid line. I parlayed Emmers at minus 220 with the spot later on the card. Yeah, similar thoughts here. I think that on the feet, if he keeps his standing, I think he's going to be faster, quicker guy, more dynamic striker. I think he's going to be able to work the body great with the knees in the clinch, kicks from range. And I think that if he wants to, he's going to be able to wrestle Chaz here. But I think the best path to victory for him would be keeping it standing, keeping it in range, and, appointing him to a decision. But so, yeah, I have Emmers here.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I think Skelly's win condition is pretty limited to like a round one sub. He's probably got 7.5 minutes maybe of gas. Yeah, I think Emmers is the side. I think I have some Emmers at some early FanDuel line, like minus 140. That was just gonna hedge some Skelly round one sub and just cover my price on it. But yeah, I think Emmers most of this guy pretty much hasn't covered. So.
Yeah, so like Luke said, I looked into this about a month ago. I got in at like minus 174 for 3 units. Honestly, I almost think Emmers is playable up to like 250, to be honest. I just, like Luke nailed most of it. It's not competitive on the feet. Skelly's pretty gassy. Emmers isn't. And in terms of the grappling, Emmers actually has pretty functional jiu-jitsu. Like, he's known for being a wrestler, but if you actually watch his transitions, he's pretty high level. And just to like touch on something, like I kind of think Skelly getting a back take early and choking him out is probably his best path. But like we saw Thiago Moises get down Emmers about 4 or 5 years ago in an LFA in round 5 while Emmers was gassed out. And he went to take Emmers back, and Emmers basically immediately turned into it, fought the hands well, and got up. Now, that's a long time ago. Moises is a far more credentialed Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner than Skelly is. And if he wasn't able to get Emmers back, I don't think Skelly is likely going to be able to either. So just like all the physical attributes are in Emmers' favor, Emmers' win with Giga has aged shockingly well, to be honest. He outlanded him at distance. So, yeah, I mean, I think he should be minus 350, 400 range personally. I think he's going to roll here. So, yeah, consensus pick, Jamal Emmers. Next up, we're going to stick with Luke here. Shannon Dobson, AC O'Neill. Take it away, Luke.
Yeah, so definitely a little bullish on O'Neill here. Want to preface off the top by saying I don't think, O'Neill is a world beater. I don't overtly value her game. In general, she is making her debut. Only five pro fights, so I want to just say that off the top. But I feel like some of the takes on the fight are a little bit wild. I feel like the path to victory for O'Neill is pretty clear here. Shayna Dobson's takedown defense is 0%. Girls have went 7 for 7 on her, 8 for 8 if you actually include the Roxanne fight where Roxanne took her down within essentially like 30 seconds and then pounded her out on the ground. Sabine Mazzo, a girl who's more known for Muay Thai base. She is a brown belt, but, often we don't really see, Mazzo going to the wrestling and beating girls up on the ground just because, that's not really her game. So what that tells me is that, that's how confident, Mazzo was in that spot to, kind of essentially test her test her wrestling and grappling. And to be honest, I think that fight probably gets stopped with more time permitting in the first round. She had her mounted pretty high and was landing massive ground and pound. And then honestly, on the feet, when it comes to low-level WMMA, I do actually think Dobson's probably the better technical boxer with maybe more power components here. But, I mean, Casey O'Neill does come forward, throw a lot of volume. Like I said, it's not the most technical in doing so, but we did see even in the latter part of the Lauren Mueller fight, Mueller really started to have later success, really started to get off on her. And you can just kind of tell that Shayna Dobson doesn't like pressure. So I don't think it's like a foregone conclusion that if Casey O'Neill isn't able to get this fight to the ground, that she can't win this standing either. Because I still just don't value the game of Dobson overtly that high. So, you know, I jumped in on this one a little too early at not a great line because I was almost positive that this line was going to skyrocket, and it went the other way. Ultimately, I think it's just a case in point of recency bias. To be honest, if Agapova rolls Dobson, in my opinion, Casey O'Neill's probably minus 300 here. Not saying that that's where I put her. I'm just saying based on, you know, how the market, you know, corrects and moves and whatnot, that's probably the case. But instead, you know, Agapova, you know, gasses within a minute, tears her ACL in the fight, and now people are betting Shayna Dobson. So I just don't see it. I'm not super heavily invested from like a unit sizing perspective. I only got a couple units on it, but it's more so just a bet on the price on a girl with a pretty clear path to victory. You know, purple belt in jiu-jitsu, decent wrestling, has shown at least decent components in what she's done. So yeah, maybe I get burned by, you know, the traditional, you know, younger fighter debutante spot, but I'm honestly just down to continue to fade Dobson. I just don't think she's very good.
Lags, how are you?
So conversely here, I actually don't think O'Neill is very good. I don't think her striking defense is all that good. Her wrestling seems to be okay. Jiu-jitsu seems to be okay, but it's mostly against cans, other than her last two opponents who are 5-3 and 6-1. But I mean, I get the not playing Dobson at, you know, plus 125. I think where it opened at like plus 185. I don't mind a stab there, but like kind of where it's at now, I'd rather pass than anything. I don't think this is like a favorite or pass situation. I don't really like Casey O'Neill at all.
See,
Pass.
yeah, I kind of come down with Lags here. I think Shayna Dobson's like the least positionally sound defensive grappler maybe in the UFC. And so it's like one of those things where if it turns out O'Neill is a plus grappler, she's probably going to look minus 500 in hindsight here. I'm just not really convinced that that's the case. And it's like the girls Casey O'Neill fought, Shayna Dobson would probably be minus 300 to 400 against all of them, if we're being honest. But that said, Shayna Dobson can't grapple. Casey O'Neill grapples a lot. And it's like that's enough for me. Like at plus 200, I might be willing to take the level step up shot at Dobson here. But at plus 125, where it's like I could bet plus 125 and she ends up on her ass inside 2 minutes with O'Neill on her back. Like that's not something I'm really looking to gamble at. Like I get the angle on O'Neill. I'm just more in the I want to see O'Neill have grappling success in the UFC before I'm willing to actually trust that she can have grappling success in the UFC. And so we move on. We got Rafael Alves taking on Pat Sabatini. C, you want to take this away?
Yeah, I don't have like super strong thoughts. I played the over 1.5 at like minus 140. Mostly I think Sabatini, you know, he'll try and cage push. You know, he's going to look to grapple. I haven't really seen too much of him striking, so I really don't have, you know, the best gauge on his striking. But I do think, you know, he's probably, I mean, not probably, he is at an athletic disadvantage here. Some concerns about his strength, but, you know, I think Alves is pretty accepting of just kind of playing guard. And, you know, I don't think Sabatini is getting subbed. So, yeah, I mean, I'm mostly on the just the over. I don't hate like a Sabatini play. I think Alves kind of sucks, but, you know, I don't know, he's kind of meme. Does have some explosive movements. But, yeah, I think if I was playing Alves, I'd probably like – I saw a round one knockout was like plus 1,600. I don't think it's the most absurd thing. Sabatini does seem tough though, but yeah, I just I don't have a particular side here money line wise, but I think the over was good. Now it's kind of gotten steamed. Goes to distance, probably not bad. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was on the I am on the over as well, over the over 1.5. I'll say this. I had a bet on Trezano that was pretty big at plus money against Alves in the first iteration of this. And Trezano was going to box his fucking face off. Like, I have my opinion of Rafael Alves is pretty much the guy looks like a world-class fighter and does not fight like a world-class fighter at all. I don't think he does anything particularly well. He's got a tight squeeze on the guillotine. To C's point, he's got a lot of explosive movements, but he only has one KO since 2016 fighting Cans and Titan FC. So it's like, as explosive as he looks, like, does he have that much power? Because you'd expect fighting that level of competition, he'd be getting knockouts there at some point. And his grappling, like, yeah, he's got a tight guillotine, but I don't really see much else that's impressive. I'm considering a play on Sabatini, to be honest. I was hoping to get a better line, but it looks like it might be coming in. But like C said, Sabatini's a tough guy. He seems like it. He's not going to play the game in the pocket with Alves and give him a chance to tee off. He's probably going to be all the way out or all the way in. I'm very confident that if Alves tries to pull guillotine against him, he's just going to pass it. Like, he's a Daniel Gracie black belt. He's probably the better grappler in this fight. The big concern for me is if I thought he was as physically strong or as good an athlete, I'd be on him as a no-brainer. Like, I'd be on him big. But I do think he's probably at a sizable athleticism deficit here. And so I'm still weighing it. But I do think if one of these guys is going to look hindsight minus 300, minus 400, it's far more likely to be Sabatini than Alves. Like, I could easily imagine a situation where Alves just picks his spots and then just grapples him to death. Like, it would not surprise me at all. Whereas, or not Alves, Sabatini. Whereas it would shock me if Alves can just grapple Sabatini to death. And, like, even if it's a kickboxing match, yeah, I favor Alves, but he's so low volume that it's like he could easily drop a close decision without a knockout. So, yeah, that's my take. I lean Sabatini pretty hard, and I'm on the over. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I pretty much echo all your guys' sentiments. I also played the over. I am still potentially considering Sabatini, but similar to you, John, I'd like just a tad bit better of a price because you brought up the point of, the strength consideration here and the size. I think that potentially could play a factor just based on Sabatini's game and the willingness to go to the grappling. We have seen Alves get stuck on bottom and stuck on the cage in multiple fights for extended minutes. So I think that's a pretty clear path for Sabatini. Once again, whether he's, able to hold him down or keep him there, that I guess is somewhat of a question, but I do think the path is there, and Sabatini's shown the willingness to go to that component in virtually all of his fights and has had a lot of success in doing so. So I think that's a consideration, but then in general, he's coming in on a week's notice here. And, in the COVID climate, that just kind of always makes me a little bit nervous in terms of gas, especially with the style that grinding based wrestling, grappling style that Sabatini brings. How does his gas look over the course of 15 minutes, potentially in a heavy grappling based fight on a week's notice against a guy who used to fight at 155, who's much stronger than him. So that's ultimately kind of my hesitation staying away. But my angle more so on the over 1.5 is that there is going to be a lot of grappling in this fight. Like you said, John, he's going to be kind of either all the way in, all the way out. I think that kind of grinding based game of Sabatini is going to limit some of those bigger, more explosive shots in the middle to limit the potential knockout early coming from Alves. And I also think the grappling kind of just cancels each other out. So I don't really see a sub coming either. So yeah, the over 1.5, I think, is the play for the fight.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, so actually this is the second fight that I just really don't have a clear read on, to be honest with you. So pass as well. I think you guys nailed it. I think Sabatini's probably the sider.
All right, so I'll stick with you, Lags. Next fight, we got Juliana Rosa, UCJ, taking on Nate Lanware. Any thoughts here?
So I think this is kind of a dumpster fire, to be honest. This isn't in my three like not fights I'm not really looking into, but I don't know. I know a lot of people are looking at a Rosa here. I feel like Nate's just the pace and the pressure of him might be too much, and I honestly think Nate KO at 5-1 isn't a bad play. I was actually looking at the under 2.5 just because I think it's going to be a high pace, high pressure type of fight, and I think Rosa could catch him in a sub if he ends up shooting like a panic takedown here. But pass here, to be honest. But I like the under.
Oops, sorry, Alex. See?
No, you're good.
Oh yeah, pass. I didn't look into this one.
Yeah, I'm thinking about playing Nate. I haven't. My concern really is that I think Rosa is the better fighter everywhere it goes, which in an even money fight you don't really want. But like both of these guys fight the same way. Neither is defensively responsible. They're both going to come in and go to war. I don't think Rosa has the wrestling chops to take Nate down. I mean, Elkins went 1 for 14, and he's a far better wrestler. And so the most likely scenario is the two of these guys trading bombs for 15 minutes. I'm pretty confident Nate can keep his pace, even if I don't think he's as skilled. And like at the end of the day, one of these guys is famously durable, and one of them is famously not durable. I do think Rosa is a skilled fighter, to be honest, but the reality is he's massively defensively irresponsible. And as a result, he fights with his hands down, he keeps his chin up in the air, and we see him get hurt almost every fight. Even last fight, and I think he's probably getting too much shine for beating Woodson as a plus 400 dog. Yeah, he looked great there, but Woodson almost killed him in round 2, if you guys recall. And, he got hit. I think he got hit over 100 times in that fight as well. So you're telling me they're going to go to war. Well, that means it's probably going to be a pretty close fight. And I think the finishing upside's in Nate's favor here. So I'm kind of hoping more Rosa money comes in, but I do have some moderate interest in Nate. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you, John, too. I'm probably not going to bet it. I think probably a pick'em is correct, if not a slight lean to Nate. I guess my angle in terms of just a pick, and maybe even slightly favoring Nate, is that pressure and pace that he brings. He is a guy who has also been hurt, dropped in multiple fights, but is a guy who just at the end of the day is durable and historically, just isn't getting finished in a lot of those scenarios. Like he's been mounted, guys are grounding, pounding him, and he gets out. He just gets out and he keeps going. And honestly, guys gas themselves trying to kill Landwehr historically, and he's just a guy that doesn't go away. So I kind of feel like that could be a similar sentiment in this fight, because I do give Rosa the grappling edge here, but not enough where I think a Rosa sub is overtly likely. So in a fight that Landwehr's going to be going forward, pandering to the judges, yelling, doing all this bullshit. The Elkins fight, say what you want. I actually think Darren Elkins won that fight, but nonetheless, I think it's more so my pick and angle towards Landwehr is just more of an optics thing. And to your point too, John, I think he ironically actually is the more durable of the two, all things considered. So my pick's Landwehr, but I've already got a lot of exposure on this card, so it's not really one I'm clamoring to play.
Yeah, I live bet Elkins plus 950 after round 2. I was not amused at the end of that fight. But anyway, next fight. I'll start with you here. We got Eddie Wineland taking on John Castaneda. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I just played Castaneda by knockout. It was plus 500. Honestly, I think ends by knockout was plus 2 something. Don't mind that. I don't really have super strong opinions. I mostly am just trying to fade Wineland, just based on age, to be honest. So yeah, nothing super strong here, but plus 500 seemed worth a stab.
Yeah, I have no play here. I don't really have a strong opinion either. I basically watched one fight each and was just like, yeah, I don't really want my money here. I think Wineland's probably better, but he's moving towards the shot stage of his career. So Luke, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so not really a strong opinion here for me either, but I should say I have a strong lean towards Eddie Wineland. I think to me, it more so really just comes down to the durability factors of Eddie Wineland. But I just think historically, he's been fighting perennial top 10 guys over the course of the last decade. I think he has, a style to beat Castaneda potentially at a relatively decent clip. Like to me, Castaneda, a large majority of the fights that he's winning, it's because he's able to land takedowns and get a decent amount of top time. But Eddie Wineland has 86% takedown defense over like a crazy sample size, which is like some of the best in UFC bantamweight history. Like Caraway went like 0 for 12. Faber went like 2 for 11. Only time he was submitted was by like Hani Yahya back in WEC like 12 years ago. So I know he's largely losing to a lot of these top guys and not necessarily being overtly competitive in that sense. But I mean, we kind of saw what happens when he gets a step down against a guy like Gregory Popov. Like he absolutely beat the living shit out of Gregory Popov. And then even against a guy like in Frankie Saenz, who, also comes from a wrestling background, looked to wrestle against him, was largely able to stay upright for the majority of the fight, hurt him bad and beat him up. So I just don't think Castaneda has really the volume. I don't think he's an overt power threat here, like some of the other opponents that Eddie Wineland has fought. So I think Eddie Wineland actually has the opportunity to win minutes here, which isn't, a prototypical take for Eddie Wineland fights because he's not the highest output guy. But I actually do think he's the better striker. And you always know Eddie Wineland is live for a knockout too. So actually, I think it could potentially be a decent spot for Wineland. Like I said, assuming he's not, completely shot, not completely done. Yeah, I like Eddie in this fight.
I endorse that message.
His girlfriend is hot. I can also think of that. So this actually rounds out the trio of past fights. I again, similar thoughts to you guys. I think this is a dumpster fire. To be honest, most of the prelims I think in general are, but yeah, I don't want my money on this fight.
Lags. The next three prelims are not dumpster fires. And in fact, I have action on all of them. So next up, we got Draco Close, Luis Pena. I took the stab at Pena for a unit plus 184. It's funny because I feel like I'm usually one of Close's most vocal backers. Like I think he's, for a guy with minimal athletic ability, I think he's actually pretty good. He's made the most of his talents. He fights fairly intelligently, forces the clinch a lot, and he's got absolutely vicious like outside calf kick. The problem for me, as I see it for him here, is, well, first of all, you look at every fight of Close's career, he's never won a fight dominantly ever. Like, I don't think he's ever paid off a minus 200 price tag in a fight in his career, even though he's like, 5-2 in the UFC, something like that. Every one of his fights are close, and that's partially because he's not a great athlete. He's fairly low output, and he's basically reliant on making fights dirty to win. And so he could do that here. But like I said, his best weapon is the outside calf kick. And in this case, he's going to be facing a southpaw. And so I think, we all know the kick to the inside leg is not nearly as effective as it is outside. And so that'll be there, but I don't think he's as likely to compromise Pena at range. And so in a kickboxing match, I guess I'd slightly lean Close, except Pena's, 6 inches taller and has a 5-inch reach advantage. He's also younger. He's faster. He's more athletic. And so I think it's going to be fairly close standing, and I think if it hits the mat, if Pena can get him down, he's going to take his back, and that's going to be around. Close gives his back up every time. Pena is really good at putting in the body triangle. Do I trust Pena to land multiple takedowns? No, but that upside is there. It's probably around if he gets him down. And standing, like I said, every fight Close is in is close. So I have a 1 unit stab at Pena plus 184. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, originally I was looking to potentially kind of jump on the violent Bob Ross train, but actually I went the other way today, and I moved in on a play with Draco Close by decision at plus 125. Largely my reasoning is, there's a few points, at least in regards to the calf kick. We have seen at least one opponent effectively utilize that against Pena, and that was Trezano. He actually beat, from the orthodox southpaw nature, he beat his leg up pretty bad. That's something that Close is consistent to throw. And ultimately, despite Close, numerically not being super high output, Pena really isn't either. And ultimately, the main reason I'm making this bet is that I think Close is just a great optics winner because of that. You look at the just a lot of the metrics in all of his fights, even against Bobby Green. I know some people might disagree with that decision where, he got, 90 to 50 on strikes or whatever, mounted a couple times, pounded on, still looked pretty strong in the third round, was coming forward, throwing strikes, and ultimately won him the optics there. And that's kind of been the same case in point in a couple other fights, even against Yagos took him down, had his back, threatened chokes, was able to survive that. Dariush was on his back for 4 minutes, threatening chokes. Benny's obviously a phenomenal grappler, wasn't able to sub him. So I think his sub defense is pretty on point. There might be some merit, to what you have, John, in the sense that if Pena is able to land takedowns, it could potentially be around, but I'm not necessarily sold on that. And I just feel like Pena just doesn't really deal well with pressure in the aggregate. Like, he's a guy, in my opinion, who just really needs to like get into a rhythm on the feet to succeed. Like we saw, like at points, you know, he looks great against Frivola, and then other points, it's just like, what in God's name? Then Frivola just comes on late and starts bombing on him. I just think it's that pressure that Close is going to bring. It's not going to give him, you know, this range, you know, kickboxing match essentially that he needs. I think he can make it dirty in the clinch. He's got some really nasty knees that can help tax the cardio of Pena. So yeah, Close has been a decision machine. Pena's gotten wobbled a few times, but you know, I think it's going to be a high action fight where I'd rather, you know, just take the most likely win condition of the fight, in my opinion, rather than backing Close minus 170. So just a small play for me, a unit on Close by decision at plus 125.
Rags, have you?
So not too strong of an opinion, but I'm kind of sort of leaning with Luke here. I think the pace and the wrestling of Close is just gonna be enough to neutralize Pena. I think I get what you're saying as well with the wrestling, that if he's able to get the back, he's gonna probably be able to control him. But I don't know. I favor Close standing, and I would favor Close as long as he has a wrestle heavy game plan.
See, have you?
Yeah, I don't have a super strong opinion. I'm like, I mean, I'm kind of like high on Pena, I guess, just like long term. Like, I guess I still believe in him. Close is okay. They both kind of, you know, fight close fights. Just kind of all their fights have been, you know, relatively close, even though, you know, there's been times where they really didn't need to be. But I do tend to agree, like, if Pena gets the back, it's probably round over. Honestly, I just don't really want a big part of this. I would say Close pretty much by decision. Like Luke said, I think that's kind of the better angle. I wouldn't lay juice on him. Pena, no scorecards. That could be interesting. But yeah, I'm just kind of passing.
All right, well, let's move on to a fight that you do have a strong opinion on. Jared Gordon versus Danny Chavez. Give me to me.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of like don't understand like the market's reaction to Danny Chavez. You know, like TJ Brown, who's not a UFC caliber fighter, you know, open minus 200 versus Danny Chavez. I bet Brown there when the line got like hit all the way down to, I think it was like minus 140. And then Brown, you know, comes out and decides he wants to test his fucking kickboxing skills when he has a pretty horrendous chin, just like regionally. You can see him getting wobbled a bunch. And yeah, I mean, within 3 minutes, his leg was pretty fucking compromised. So like, I don't understand why that's like telling of like Chavez like being, you know, some type of like elite prospects or whatever the hell he might be. I mean, I don't even know. Can you be a prospect at 33? Probably not. So, you know, there's that piece of it. And honestly, in that fight on one leg, TJ Brown won round 3 unanimously. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And Chavez, I think he's getting a little bit too much credit for, you know, maybe being a finisher. I mean, I see people saying he's a finisher, but I don't even understand like the basis of him being a finisher. He's 33 and he had his, you know, first knockouts at, you know, 30, 31, 32, like 10 fights into his career. So, I mean, he's either making a tremendous late push where he's just developed power, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure one of them was like a head kick or something, so it's just kind of random. And again, TJ Brown ate, you know, everything that Chavez threw, and TJ Brown has, you know, a bad chin. It's pretty shit. Whereas Gordon is, you know, I'm not saying he's like a top 10 fighter, but you know, at 145, he's pretty reliable to, you know, take the most reasonable path. And I think he pretty much has Chavez covered, you know, everywhere. At distance, I think he's going to just, honestly, I think he's going to take him down, and Chavez isn't going to get back up, and everybody's going to be like, oh my God, what happened? I couldn't foresee this. TJ Brown couldn't take him down. I guess Jared Gordon shouldn't be able to. But yeah, I mean, I think Gordon should be like at least just on like principle alone, like 65%. And I think like I have Gordon at like 70%, and I think Gordon's probably getting a little bit too much shit on his chin. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, plus I played him minus 110 thinking he was going to close minus 200, and then I played him fucking plus 110, and then played him the other day plus 125. I took some round 3 knockout because I think Chavez is going to gas. And I played Gordon knockout. It's like plus 1,200. Round 3 is plus 5,000. I'm kind of just all in on Gordon. I just don't think that there's, really any good like support of how Chavez can be a favorite. I mean, I haven't seen anyone say anything really good about him other than, Gordon's going to get his shit knocked out in round 1 based on nothing. So,
yeah. So funny story. Steve and I were talking about 2 weeks back, and we're like, "Fuck, Jared Gordon minus 140. That's ridiculous. Like, we're gonna smash that if that line holds." And here we are, and he's at plus 125. Like, guys, what the fuck are you doing? Like, laying juice with Danny Chavez. Like, I have seen 3 separate people who I respect make the case that he had this sensational debut. He landed 49 significant strikes in 15 minutes and gassed out 9 minutes into the fight. Like, and there's it was short notice. Like, well, there's almost no film of him out there. Are you telling me he's a cardio god? Because he didn't look like a cardio god. Everything is throwing like explosive energy. It's not surprising he gassed out. The guy's been fighting bums to C's point. He didn't get a KO for 10 fights in the regionals. Go look at the guys he KO'd. First guy he fought was 8-8. The next 2 guys he KO'd both fought nothings but 0-0s and 0-1 guys before he fought them. It's like maybe he could knock Gordon out. Like, I could see him KOing Gordon in 2 or 3 minutes. Gordon can be defensively irresponsible. But, like, people talk about Gordon's chin. He got knocked out by a nuke from Oliveira. Got knocked out by CDF, also at lightweight. Got knocked out by Joaquim Silva, also at lightweight. But go watch the Silva fight. They were absolutely trading bombs for, the last, 4 minutes of that fight. Gordon was dominating the fight, hurt his knee, basically couldn't walk, and was just sitting in the pocket and probably ate about 30 nukes before he went out. So I think the idea that he's just like you breathe on him and he dies just doesn't really get backed up. Now we're down at 45, and he's a much bigger man here. His metrics are great. Again, I'm not saying he's top 10, featherweight, but top 20, 25, I think he could be that. Whereas Chavez, he beat TJ Brown in a fight that actually ended up being pretty close, even though Brown's leg was gone 2 minutes into the fight. And so it's like, I'm pretty confident if Chavez doesn't dead him in the first 2 to 3 minutes, Gordon's going to win this fight fairly easily. I think it's going to be pretty funny. I keep seeing people talk about Chavez's quick hips when Gordon puts him on his ass 90 seconds into the fight. I don't get it at all. Like, if you were to look up minus EV bet, it is guy that fought a bunch of bums, beat a bum in his debut, and is now a favorite against an established fighter who's 4-3 in the UFC. Like, look at Gordon's wins. Pakran Diaz is better than literally anybody Chavez has fought. Bill Algeo is better than pretty much anybody Chavez has fought. Like, he has dumpstered much better fighters than anybody Chavez has fought. He was beating Silva, who was probably a better version of Danny Chavez, if we're being honest. I don't understand the line here. I'm with C. Like, I kind of think I'd say 65%, just because if you do make the assumption that Gordon's chin is bad, then maybe you assign a 25 to 30% KO chance to Chavez. But, like, that's really high for 145, where he hasn't been knocked out at. And so to me, it just – like, that's about the best case I can look at it and say, okay, Gordon should be 65%. I don't understand the line at all. He's an established fighter taking on a guy who's not established at all. And like C said, 33, he's not even really a prospect. So maybe Chavez knocks him out early. I don't think KO1 is a terrible play. But I personally think this is Gordon all day. I have 3 units on him plus 110. I can't believe this line is continuing to trend toward Chavez. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so I played Chavez. I'm just kidding. No real strong opinion for me. I don't know. We got one fight from Danny Chavez, and another fight from 2015. So it is what it is. But I definitely echo the sentiments in the sense that I don't know how people are so confident in backing Chavez, because it seems like it's been largely pretty much one-way traffic on MMA Twitter towards Chavez. So yeah, man, I just out of principle, I got to do a little bit more tape on this fight, but I may have to just jump in on Jared Gordon. I'm not the biggest Jared Gordon fan per se either, but yeah, you guys bring up a lot of good points. So when you see a plus number next to his name, just in general, against a largely unproven commodity, who didn't actually impress as much in his debut as some people are saying, in my opinion as well, it's definitely interesting. So yeah, I'm going to keep my eye on it.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, so I haven't bet Gordon yet, but similar to what Miller just brought up there, I pretty much think that outside of a round 1 knockout for Chavez, I think that just the pace and the wrestling of Jared Gordon here is just going to be enough to gas Chavez out and, like C said, probably find a late finish. I like Gordon here in the spot, and I'm probably going to be on him for a unit and a half, depending on where this line settles out at.
Yeah, so we're all – the Smart Podcast is on Jared Gordon. I'm just kidding. I'm not taking a shot at anybody, but seriously, Gordon is the side. We move on. We have Andre Arlovski taking on Tom Aspinall. Legs, I'll stick with you. What do you got?
So speaking of the side, you and I know both jumped on Andre Arlovski at the opener that FanDuel left out there. So I have a unit on Andre Arlovski at plus 310. I think this is your, traditional Arlovski type of levels fight. I mean, Tom Aspinall has only been out of this first round, I believe, twice, and he's lost in both of those occasions. So I think this is a big, huge step up in competition, obviously, and basically a big, proving point for me. If he's able to beat Arlovski to a decision, then, maybe I'll pull back my reins on Aspinall and, give him a bit more credit than I am right now. But where it's at right now, I think plus 310 was crazy where they opened it, and I still think at plus 210 is crazy for Arlovski.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I just played the FanDuel opener just because, I figured that line was not going to hold. So I got half a unit on plus 310. But honestly, I'm not really running to go bet Arlovski, even though I tend to think he's the value side, even at plus 210. I don't know. Something there's, Aspinall. I think it's a spot where you could clearly just fade Aspinall just on principles. But I don't know. I got a gut feeling that Arlovski's, run here of staying on his feet and not getting killed is maybe coming to an end.
Yeah, I took the same number on FanDuel. I actually do think if I didn't have a play on it already, I would take the 210, just like you said, on the principle of we haven't even seen Aspinall go into the second round more than once in his entire career. In his UFC career so far, Alan Badeau, who he beat last fight, is not even almost a UFC caliber fighter. And before that, it's actually funny. The Collier fight would have been somewhat interesting if he didn't KO him in the first 30 seconds. But generally, I'm of the mind that quick KOs are fairly meaningless and have minimal predictive value going forward, unless you're Francis Ngannou, which I don't think he is. But yeah, I kind of have the same weird vibes just because Aspinall does seem to be a good athlete and fast. It's concerning for sure. But Arlovski, Walt Harris is a pretty good athlete and fast, and Arlovski basically was able – he probably should have won that fight. Same thing with Sakai. Well, I don't know if Sakai's a good athlete, but, Sakai throws a ton of volume for heavyweight, goes forward and pressures, and he struggled to hit Arlovski too. It's just that Arlovski's kind of a tough fight for anybody who doesn't have a relatively deep understanding of striking. He plays the inside-out game so well. If you can't make reads well, you're going to, just struggle to hit him. And so – Aspinall could be really good. And again, it's a broken record here, but we know next to nothing about him. I'm very confident he can't grapple Arlovski. So hopefully he doesn't just dead Arlovski in 30 seconds because I'd like to see how it plays out if they end up, getting into extended exchanges here. But yeah, I mean, I think Arlovski's the side. Until I see Aspinall actually put together a complete performance, I'm going to be looking to fade him. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, you guys pretty much echoed all my sentiments as well. I guess I'm the only one who actually doesn't have a bet on Arlovski yet. I missed that plus 310, but that's an absolutely phenomenal line.
Decision right now, plus 380.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not really a matter of if, but when. I'm gonna play Arlovski. I do kind of, to your guys' point, I have some of these vibes that this kind of might be the end of. The late Arlovski, 2021 run. Because, I like Aspinall a little bit, but to your guys' point, it's just from even just, throw the analysis of the fight out the window for 2 seconds. Largely unproven guy, first round finisher, still pretty young in his career, hasn't really fought anybody, getting a massive step up against a more proven commodity who's beat the much better guys, who's been around forever, who's more consistent in terms of winning minutes, and a guy who I think is a really strong tactician on the feet. So it really just comes down to the question, okay, well, what happens if Aspinall doesn't dead him? Like, who knows? Maybe his boxing and gas for 15 minutes is good enough that he can go out there and outwork a guy like Arlovski, and maybe even put him out later too. But it's one of those things that's yet to be seen. So when a guy like this is at plus 210 above that, it's like, just out of principle, I pretty much have to play it. I haven't jumped in on it yet, just because if you kind of look at best fight odds and just Arlovski trends over the years, a ton of the steam the other way comes in right around Friday. So I'm assuming Arlovski's going to go up to plus 240, plus 250 here when people start chucking Aspinall in their parlays. So I'm going to sit on it because I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to get a much better price than Arlovski. Might just look to that decision line, but I guess I'd almost rather just play him straight, because I don't really, once again, we haven't seen Aspinall in extended exchanges. I know Arlovski, at least this form of Arlovski, isn't a big power threat. He's more, point fighting, inside outside type stuff, but just haven't seen Aspinall tested. So I'm not necessarily willing to concede the straight price to play the prop, even though it's a great line and, probably a decent outcome of this fight. But I'll more than likely, when I jump in on Arlovski, it will be straight out of principle for a small play.
Yeah, real quick. The reason I'm not interested in the decision line, even though I do agree it's probably his most likely win condition, is like we've all talked about. We don't really know what Aspinall's gas is like. And let's say he does have trouble hitting him and tries to wrestle heavy and can't. We've seen a million heavyweights death gas over the years. Even though Arlovski doesn't hit hard, if Aspinall attempts 4 or 5 takedowns and is suddenly totally shot at the 8-minute mark, I don't really want to be sweating that bet on a guy who potentially could just get finished via exhaustion late in the fight. So, yeah. I mean, I don't hate anybody for taking the shot, but I do think it is a consideration. We move on. We got another rebook here. We got Nasruddin Imavov taking on Phil Hawes. Luke, you want to start here?
Yeah, so as you touched on rebooking, it seems like this has been just 100% Imavov love. I think he was all the way up around like plus 200 in the original booking. Now we're sitting at Pick'em. I definitely understand the early money, not to make a direct comparison to the last fight, but obviously Hawes has, definite cardio concerns and not really a proven minute winner per se. So, when we talk about backing guys straight, that's always a consideration in terms of whether you should just play a prop. But what I've said about Hawes, man, I do feel like he's one of these guys that could just fall into the anomalous type power category where, he hits guys and they just die. I still do have some issues with Imavov's striking defense. So I actually do think Hawes kind of knocks him out here, but I definitely understand from a betting perspective why people jumped in on Imavov, around some of those bigger plus numbers, because I think he does have the ability more so to win minutes. His striking isn't bad, but one thing that's really not that isn't getting brought up much is like, if you go back and even watch some of Imavov's regional fights, like he's gotten grinded in the wrestling by like some really, really bad guys. So you can say what you want about, Hawes' wrestling in his gas tank, but it's like, I've seen guys that are a lot less athletic than Phil Hawes that have a lot worse gas actually than Phil Hawes that have had success wrestling Imavov. Maybe that's something he's improved. You can maybe take some notes of that from the Jordan Williams fight. But yeah, I guess I'm just not as sold on all this Imavov love as everybody else is, but I definitely understand the angle. But no bet for me. I should say the bet I was considering was the fight doesn't go to decision. That was around minus 200 in the original booking. That now sits like minus 270. So I want no part there. So it's pass for me.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, I kind of like the angle there with Luke, and I don't mind the under 1.5 here because, like Luke touched on, I don't rate the striking defense of Imavov that highly. I think this is a perfect Hawes round 1 type scenario, but again, he's just a type of fighter I don't want to back with the cardio issues. So pass.
See?
Yeah, I think the first time I picked up some dog Hawes when that fight was booked. I think right before, it got canceled, he kind of flipped dog. And my stance is more just like, I think Hawes has just got a better skill set. I don't know about the cardio. It's hard to say, if he's, what it's going to look like. But I do think Hawes, has a more clear path than Imanov does. I think Imanov's path is a little less clear to me than Hawes. So, yeah, I mean, I don't love, if it flips back dog again, I'll probably take a stab. But I don't have like a super strong conviction. I don't think Imanov is that good. I think the Jordan Williams performance is kind of an outlier, mostly because I think Jordan Williams, I don't know, a guy who's normally, historically, durable and has cardio and output, and then whatever happened, just he looked like complete dog shit. So I don't know if that's, I don't know. Obviously I was on Williams pretty big there, and I just can't wrap my head around that fight.
Yeah. So I'm not going to get too deep into this. I am more or less of the opinion that, Imavov plus 200 might have been value the first time around, where everybody was jumping in plus 130, plus 140. I didn't really think was value. I mean, it could have been hindsight, but I kind of think Hawes, we kind of know what Imavov is. He's, pretty offensively potent, but has virtually nothing defensively, both in terms of his grappling defense and his striking defense. And so, if Hawes gasses out the way he did 4 years ago, then Imavov probably takes over if he doesn't get finished early. But I do think Hawes has a massive skill set advantage. And it's kind of like the worst case scenario for Hawes is probably 40%. Whereas if he's cleaned up the cardio, it might be more like 70%, because I think he's the more powerful striker. I generally think he's the better striker. He could grind him, to your point, Luke. I also sort of come down on I think he's probably going to finish him, to be honest. I'm not going to play it. I might play Dog Hawes if he gets there. But yeah, I mean, I think the upside's in Hawes' favor. This just seems like a stay. Like you're begging to get burned if you play a side here. We move on. We got Chris Dawkins taking on the Boa Constrictor, Alexei Olenek. Lags, you want to start here?
Yeah, so this actually kicks off my prop article. This is my first prop for it. So I have I have 1.5 units on the under 1.5 at minus 150. So we'll start off with Chris Dawkins. So 11 of his 13 fights have ended under 1.5 rounds. And then for Olenek, similar sample size, 13 UFC fights, 9 of his 13 fights have went under 1.5. And I think it's kind of a binary fight in the sense that we haven't really seen Dawkins off of his back that much. So I think there are opportunities, obviously, for Olenek to sink into choke. He can choke almost everybody other than, Derek Lewis that last time out. Happens. But largely, I do think that this fight probably stays standing, and I think Dawkins is probably going to find that knockout. I think that if this does make it past the first round, Olenek's going to be so gassed going into that second round that he's probably going to be able to just tee off on him. But I like the under 1.5 here. I think it's a great spot.
See, how about you?
Yeah, no super strong opinions. I don't know. Oli's kind of been coming out for that, do or die type mentality. I think he needs money, so I'm sure the under's okay. I just don't know how big of a hitter Dawkins really is. But I don't have any strong opinion.
I don't think I can make a play here, to be honest. Maybe a total, maybe a prop, but I think the best way Dawkins could approach this fight is to just blitz him early like Harris did. I kind of think if you go forward on Olenek, he's fucked because he's too old and slow, and his level changes are really too slow to kind of hit a reactive double. And you saw Harris basically just walk right up to him and knock him out. And I kind of think if Dawkins is just I'm going to bite the mouthpiece, go forward and swing, he puts him out early. But with that said, it's a weird fight because it's I know Dawkins is a black belt. I know his brother is pretty positionally sound, but I haven't really seen anything of that for him. He could be like that. I actually more lean to the side that he probably is, but not seeing it makes me nervous because if he hasn't and if he does kind of try to keep space and Olenek takes him down, would it shock anybody if he's insta-sub by Olenek? We've seen it so many times. And so it's I can't I can't lay juice on Dawkins. If this was like plus 200 Olynyk, I might be interested. But also, he's 44, and I think he's taken his last ride, to be honest. I think we're going, I think Dawkins is going to knock him out is basically what I'm getting at. There's too many unknowns for me to bet him. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so this is when I guess I'd classify I'm stepping out on more of a ledge than I might traditionally. I play Dawkins straight. And I guess the reasoning behind that is I do think there is a potential for this fight to maybe go later, because I personally don't think Dawkins is going to be insta-sub on the ground. To your point, John, he could, some of the footage is moderately limited. And honestly, some of it going back 5 or 6 years isn't particularly encouraging actually in that fact. But he has leveled his belt up twice since then, if that means anything. And at least in terms of an extended fight, Olynyk's gas tank is just really, really bad. And so with that, I also think it's going to give Dawkins some opportunities to, at least circle out and have more opportunities at space. I think Olynyk is going to have a difficult time tracking him down more so than other opponents. And I also think Dawkins has an advantage here in the clinch pretty significantly. I think he does need to mind his P's and Q's if he's going to throw knees on a guy like Olynyk for potential takedown opportunities. But I just really value the boxing of Chris Dawkins, to be completely honest. Maybe I'm jumping the gun or whatever. He's beaten some moderately lower level guys. Definitely step up. Olynyk, a guy consistently undervalued and outperformed his price. But to me, I guess there is a little bit of narrative on it for me, in the sense that Olynyk, I think he's at the end of his run, and I think it's one of these spots where the young hungry buck comes out there and beats the old vet, because I do think he has a pretty clear path to victory on the feet, as many Olynyk fights are. So,
did you say beats the old fat?
What's that?
Did you say young hungry buck beats the old fat?
No, the old vet.
Oh, it's like that's mean.
No. If anything, I guess when we're talking about fat, that's one thing. One point I want to bring up though, like Dawkins has gotten in exponentially better shape over the course of the last 3 years. Like you can see some pretty clear physique changes in him. Like the dude has had to have dropped at least 20, 30 pounds. I would assume
227 last time out.
Yeah, so that's I guess another kind of angle that I think he is going to be, one of these faster heavyweights. That's just going to really speak nightmares to Olynyk. Like I said, I value his technical boxing. So maybe if Oli does Oli things, and I come out here and eat my bet, so be it. Now I'll look like a jackass, because if this one loses, I will look like a gigantic jackass. But I like it. I think it's a decent spot for Dawkins.
Yeah, fair. I will go to you, King Minner, Charles Rosa. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing Minner. I played money line, and I have the round one sub. Honestly, round one in general, I think the difference between round one sub and round one just Minner in general is kind of minimal. Minner's aggressive early, explosive. I guess I'm kind of just. I mean, I understand why people like I do, and I don't understand the Rosa love. I mean, I think you could play Rosa. I think if you're playing Rosa purely based on Minner not having cardio, like I accept that as a valid reasoning. I think if you're playing Rosa based on the principle that Rosa has really good submission defense, I think that's where you get yourself caught into a narrative that isn't necessarily true. I think the one thing with the Mitchell fight is like, okay, one, it's a fight where he's on his back for 15 minutes and people are, really stretching, saying like, oh, wow, that was incredible that, you got controlled for 15 minutes and you didn't get subbed. Okay, like, all right, I guess that's what, Rosa was going for, just not to get fucking subbed. One, Rosa, his get-ups really aren't that good. I think Minner, early on, explosive, going to put him on his back. He's going to hunt for subs. Mitchell didn't Mitchell wasn't super committed, hunting. I think he was more happy with, solidifying position, whereas Minner's going to go balls to the fucking wall. And even if he doesn't, I think there's just a path of like Minner just being like, okay, I could just take this fucking guy down and he's going to be on his back and I'm going to get little resistance. Like, oh, this is fantastic. So that's kind of my angle on Minner is that I think he put Dawson in deep shit, right? I mean, for 4 minutes that he was, there. And that fight was on short notice. And then he moves to Glory. So I think he's at a better camp now. Maybe he's figured out some things. I think Minner's the side. I'd say, if you want to just play plus 420 sub, Minner, solid. Personally, I don't normally like to tie a substantial amount of units to a method and a combo, but round 1 sub, I'm kind of debate. I have 0.75 on it, and I'm just thinking if this is the spot where you just fucking throw everything to the wall and just okay, 4 units, all right, what's the difference at this point? It's okay. Yeah, he could grind them out, but also his win condition is pretty there's a good fucking chance that he subs Rosa early. I don't know. It's one of those scenarios where I know I shouldn't put 4 units on a method and a combo, but at the same time I'm plus 1,000 for Minner sub, 22 out of 25 fucking of his wins come in the first round via submission. It's just do some math here, and you're probably plus EV if you just kind of take the round 1 sub for Minner and fucking see what happens. But yeah, I think Minner's the side. If you're playing Rosa, good luck, but fuck you.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned the Bryce thing going for position. If you actually listen to during the fight, his corner is literally screaming, "I don't care about the fucking submission. You better stay on top of him." And so, you see it, every time it looks like he's about to pass the full side control with the arm triangle, he kind of just gives it up and moves back into mount throughout the entirety of the fight. Even the twister, once it became apparent it was going to be tough to get it, he rolled into mount. First time he did it was at the end of a round. And, I've heard Gugabe talk about this before, but, it's not easy to sub guys who are just the only thing they want is to not get subbed. They don't care about getting out of position. They just care about not getting subs. And that's kind of how that felt. You saw, it was bizarre, to be honest, because when you rewatch that fight, you see Rosa going for arm triangle defense before Mitchell's even got his head around the arm, which is really, really strange. I'm not saying he threw the fight or anything, but it was pretty apparent that he was more concerned with not being submitted there than actually trying to escape the position that entire fight. And I kind of think, look, I have a half unit on Minner round 1 sub plus 1,000. I'm probably going to play him straight. I'm hoping it gets a little wider. But I kind of agree with C. It's one of those things where it's if the same thing happens and Rosa just feels like he's in danger and ultimately decides to stay on his back, would it be that shocking for Minner to ride him out for 15? I know that's not really his MO, but he's training with a good camp now at Factory X. He's working with James Krause and Grant Dawson a lot. And now I don't put much stock in gyms, to be honest, but having a real team around you as opposed to no one seems at least somewhat meaningful. And Krause seems to be one of the better tacticians, there are in a corner. And so it's do I expect him to win a decision? No. I do expect he's going to probably go for broke early, and if he doesn't get it, we'll probably lose. But we saw Charles Rosa get his guard passed 15 times by Dennis Siver, and not much has changed in the time since. And so I'm kind of just yeah, he could sub him with an armbar. Stuff like that's happened in Minner before. But I have no faith that Rosa is going to keep this on the feet. And unlike the Dawson fight, where Dawson is an excellent wrestler, Rosa is a terrible wrestler. I don't think he's just going to come forward and take Minner down unless Minner lets him. And so, yeah, I kind of think Minner's aside. Yeah, as Akak says, Minner equals Khabib. Luke, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely not as bullish on the Minner take as you guys are, but I did play the under 2.5 here because I am giving credence to the Minner side, but I also think that the conventional narrative is true that he really only has about 5 minutes of gas because he throws that kitchen sink. And with that, he's gotten subbed, and I think subbed relatively easily multiple times. He just gasses out and he taps to stuff quickly. To be honest, that's it's in, but it's like he's quick tapping to shit. And Rosa is a black belt. You guys brought up some interesting points as well. But even like pre-UFC, like he's only had a couple sub wins in the UFC, but pre-UFC, he's submitted virtually all of his opponents. And I think just based on the game that Minner brings, he's going to force grappling exchanges even in the latter rounds when he's tired, assuming he doesn't get Rosa out, which is going to give Rosa opportunities to sub because he's more than competent. As a submission grappler, we can argue about how high level his black belt is necessarily, but competent, finished the large majority of his pro wins by sub. Minner's been subbed like 8 times or whatever. So instead of actually I might sprinkle that Minner round 1 sub just for fun. But my angle is more so just on the under 2.5. Derek Minner 36 pro fights, only 3 have ever went to the cards. Me and Lags were kind of talking about, maybe not wanting to have a violence bet that's involved with Charles Rosa. And I definitely understand that angle, but I do want to have violence bets that are associated with Derek Minner, conversely, because I think he's just going to, fight statistically over a large sample size, are not seeing not even the under 2.5 hitting, but aren't even just seeing a third round to begin with. It's largely first and second round. So I jumped in on that. I think like minus 160 or something like that. So we'll see.
Wax, how about you?
Well, you better be betting round 1 then, Luke. I mean, come on, plus 1,000. But no,
yeah.
I have a half unit on Minner sub 1 plus 1,000. I cashed on him against TJ Laramie. I had same thing. I had a quarter unit at plus 1,700, and similar to what C said here. He's got 25 wins, 22 submission wins, and 20 submissions in the first round. If he doesn't submit you in the first round, he has 10 losses. Out of his 11 losses are all inside the distance. He goes for broke in the first round. If it doesn't happen, he tends to just lose by finish. So I think the smart way to play this is the first round at plus 1,000. I think the big difference. Sorry, quick point.
No, go
I think the big difference between the Mitchell fight and this fight, also like when we were talking about the control versus the attacking the submissions, I think also Minner usually just goes for guillotines and rear nakeds, whereas Bryce in that fight was going for arm triangles and twisters, which in general are harder to set up in my opinion. And I think the rear nakeds and the guillotines are easier to catch people in. So I don't think Rosa is going to have as much time to defend them as he did with Mitchell's arm triangle.
Yeah, so Legs, you're doing the old blackjack thing, huh? You won with the 0.25 last time, doubling the bet this time. Next time we're going to go.
Well, see, I think my thing is too, I was giving more credit to Laramie's wrestling than I am with Rosa's here.
No,
I don't really rate. Yeah, I mean, obviously I just don't rate Rosa that highly. And again, it's pretty much round 1 or bust.
So next time it's going to be a full unit when it's plus 2,000 against Bryce Mitchell, right? No, I'm playing with you. I'm obviously honored as well. We move on. We got Ketlin Vieira, Yana Kunitskaya, Lags. You play here, right?
Yeah, I actually have 2 plays. So this actually rounds out my prop article as well. So this closes out my parlay with Jamal Emmers with Ketlin Vieira at minus 270. So that is an even money plus 100 parlay for 1 unit. And then I actually have a half unit on Vieira wins inside the distance at plus 260. So the reason I parlayed her here and played her prop aside is I actually think she has Yana covered everywhere here. Outside of, I think Yana is the more technical striker and probably has her beat a little bit with output. But I think the power, just the pressure and the aggressive nature of Vieira is going to be enough to get her takedowns here. And we see Yana has a 33% takedown defense. I think she can easily be controlled. I think Vieira can easily win the rounds here. And I think she can find herself a finish either on the feet, knocking her out, or submitting her on the ground. So,
yeah, fair. C, how about you?
Nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a play here. It's kind of like one of those fights where, like, I looked at it, I'm like, fuck, I really think Yana's the value side, but I also really think she's going to lose. So it's like I think the margins between her being value and her looking like a massive, massive, massive dog are pretty thin. Like, I'm pretty sure if Ketlin gets on top of her, she's not getting up at any given point. And I agree, Lags. If she gets on top of her, especially early enough in a round, she's very live to finish her. I think my issue is it's kind of funny to me that people talked about Ketlen Vieira like she was going to be the one to beat Amanda Nunes in hindsight. I just don't rate her striking at all. She's so slow. Like she throws heavy, but she's remarkably hittable and remarkably slow. It's like I'm pretty convinced Kunitskaya is going to win minute standing without really too much issue here. And so ultimately it comes down to when does Ketlen hit takedowns? Because honestly, 2 takedowns is probably the fight. But I think her takedowns are pretty slow. So it's like, is she going to go like late in the Eubanks fight in round 2 and 3? She started trying to go wrestle heavy. And I think if she takes that approach, she's going to probably look -4, -500. If she does what she's done at times earlier in her career where she's trying to test her striking and just kind of sitting back, it wouldn't shock me to see Yana just maybe steal 2 rounds off of just being a bit more active and hitting her in the face. So it's really, to me, like what path is Ketlen going to take? Because I think she has the -500 path available to her. But if she screws around like she did with Aldana and a few other fights, I think Kunitskaya is very, very live. But no play for me. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, honestly, John, I think we have pretty much the exact same breakdown of that fight. Originally, I was potentially even looking to give some credit to Yana because honestly, I'm right there with you, man. I think Ketlen Vieira's striking is massively overrated, in my opinion. Like if you look at her fight statistically, she is not outpacing anybody. She's either actually getting outpaced or they're all very competitive, close fights. Like even going back to like Ashley Evans Smith, like Ashley Evans Smith is still like competing with her on the feet and stuff. It's like, all right, Ketlen, come on. But one thing I will say for Ketlen, I think that is a big reason outside of the grappling why she wins a lot of her fights. I think her optics are good. Like when she lands clean and they're hard and impactful. But yeah, from just a general technical perspective, she's not great. Like her volume isn't great either. And that's why I think Yana will actually be competitive, at least in terms of winning minutes here. But yeah, man, once this fight hits the ground, man, it's just a levels type of thing. Yana's been finished on the ground in 5 of her 6 pro losses, actually. There's just pretty clear holes here. I think Vieira will be able to advance into dominant positions relatively easily. That's why I kind of like Lags' angle of the inside the distance, because I think a sub is very live and a ground and pound finish from like Mount is also very live. But similar to you, John, my concern is more so just when she decides to take it there, because we just do see these periods of her in these extended exchanges. So one thing I will definitively say in this fight, betting Yana Kunitskaya live is the biggest trap you will be able to bet in this fight, because I think after potentially round 1, we could be seeing a moderately competitive fight. And you might say, Yana, there might be some merit here. And then Ketlen takes her down the first 30 seconds of the second round. You're like, God damn it. Why did I do that? And she gets finished in like 2 minutes. So yeah, I think Vieira, it's a solid spot for her, but I can't get out of my head that she's just in so many close striking affairs and still has a lot of defensive issues.
Yeah, and Yana's legit got like the Thiago Santos bottom game. Like she's rolling for heel hooks against Aspen Ladd instead of trying to get up. And it's like, what are you doing? Just get up. Like you're not gonna hit a heel hook here. I don't know. I wanted to hit her so bad, but it's just like I have almost like 90% certainty that Yana's not getting up once this hits the mat. So yeah, move on. Main event. I don't do it often, as you guys know, except for Kamaru last week, but I actually laid the juice on Curtis Blaydes at -320. Basically, I'm just going to lay it out as to how I see it. Like, I'm pretty sure definitively whatever the outcome is, there's value on Blaydes here. You look at his fight with Volkov. Volkov's got better takedown defense and is a better bottom game than Lewis does. And Blaydes had, I think it was 78% control time for the course of 25 minutes. Like, that is an insane amount of control time. And like, I kind of think that's the floor when you're talking about how long will he control Lewis over potentially 25 minutes. And more likely it could be up by 80%. But so just assume you have 5 minutes of distance, thereabouts, 5-6 minutes. And likely while Lewis is fresh enough to knock Blaydes out, you're probably talking about 2 to 3 minutes tops. And it's like Lewis doesn't strike well going backwards. Blaydes is going to go forward. He's not going to sit back and let Lewis kind of get into a groove. And so I just kind of think, like, what are the chances Lewis knocks him out? Are they really clearing 15% here? Like, he doesn't have that much time to actually operate. And we've seen, even when Blaydes fought Francis, the first time he lost was a doctor stoppage. The second time, he wasn't even fully out after eating like 4 nukes from him. Like, the guy's got like stupid durability. And so, like, yeah, I mean, Lewis could knock him out. I just don't think, Lewis is low volume as it is. I just don't think the attempts and time is going to be there for him to do it at any kind of clip. And on top of that, like the one other time, like, yes, we've seen Lewis do his whole just stand up thing with other grapplers. The only other time he's faced a real wrestler before was DC, though, and he looked like a school child. Like, that's what happened when they were in the grappling. Like, DC basically was just tripping him by his heel, like, whenever he would try to get up. Like, he was literally just, like, playing around, like, how I play around with my son. Like, that's literally what it looked like. I'm not saying Blaydes would do that to him, because I think DC is a better submission grappler and a better control grappler than Blaydes is. But I actually think Blaydes' finish is very live here. Maybe for once in his life, he'll actually decide to go for a sub because it's going to be there. And I also just don't think the Lewis just stand-up game is going to work here. Lewis is a massive heavyweight. Blaydes might be the only guy in the division who's actually bigger than Lewis is here. And so Blaydes' cardio advantage, wrestling advantage, I mean, he's basically got every box ticked. Not that I expect him to strike at all, but he's the better striker by a considerable margin as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see any way Blaydes is under 85%. Does it make me a little queasy being on having a minus 320? Yeah, but I just, like I said, I just don't think the time's going to be there for Lewis to cover that line, even if he knocks him out. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, man, I think it's keep it brief. I think it's pretty much domination of Curtis Blaydes. I definitely don't hate anybody laying the chalky price or putting Blaydes in your parlays. It's one of those things where, I've tried to get better about, not being scared of outcomes, but when it comes to Derek Lewis fights, I'm just terrified, and I've lost a decent amount of money betting against Derek Lewis. But to your point, in terms of this matchup, this is probably about as worse as it could possibly get for Derek Lewis. So I guess in terms of like the knockout narrative of Lewis, it's that like, because Blaydes doesn't stay at space for very long, it's like you have to assume he's going to come out and wrestle early. With that, when Lewis is hypothetically most fresh, within 5 minutes. I know people talk about the Hail Mary he landed on Volkov or whatever at the bell and use that as a justification that, later Lewis KO potentially, but that's probably about the fluke of all flukes in general. So I just don't think even Lewis, like assuming Blaydes doesn't, try to get him out super early, I just don't think he's going to really have anything left in the tank to even land these big shots, in the latter rounds. More so instead of just a general picking betting angle on this fight, what I want to see Curtis do is I want to see him just posture up in the guard and beat the shit out of this guy. I don't want to see him, just try to pepper his way through a 25-minute decision. I want to see him go out there and really try to get Lewis out of there. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, so I also have Blaydes parlayed at minus 320 with Usman from last week. 2 units parlayed at minus 115. So you guys touched most of it. So I guess I'll touch a little other tidbit of the fight. A lot of people are playing the over 1.5 here in this fight. I don't really get the angle, to be honest. I get it that like Blaydes, he's usually that lay and pray type of guy, but I think with Lewis, he should approach. Well, he's obviously going to approach this fight. I think he's going to take him down immediately, and I think he could smash him instantly, and this could be over and around, and everybody's thinking, wow, what a shit bet I had. But I don't know. I kind of think the total now at 2.5, I don't mind the under there, because I'm thinking more of a second round, third round finish, but I think the over 1.5, a huge chalky number, I think is just asking for trouble in this style.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, Blaydes, you should roll. I'm just going to play. I mean, I played some submission just because, like, maybe this is randomly the time. So I don't have any good, whatever. I'm just like, whatever. But maybe this is the time it happens. You don't want to be the guy who doesn't have it the time he does it. But honestly, I'm rooting for Lewis. Unfortunately, I know you guys have some bets on, on Blaydes or whatnot, but it would be enjoyable for me to see Lewis, win another meme type fight, and then he give him a fucking chance at the fucking strap.
You want to see Lewis on it too?
I mean, look, Lewis is probably the only guy on the roster who's fucking hates MMA. I mean, the guy just does. I mean, he doesn't know anything about MMA. Every time he talks about it, he's like, "Who the fuck's that guy, boy? I don't know shit." So, like, having him as in a big time fucking pay-per-view fight like that, I'd get a kick out of it. But yeah, Blaydes should roll. But yeah, fuck that. Go Lewis.
See, we can't see that because John's going to be hanging in the closet. If that's the case, we can't.
Like
have
I said earlier, as long as Jared Gordon wins, I don't even care about the rest of the outcomes.
No. Honestly, I want Blaydes to win too. I want him to smash the Olynyk money out of Lewis that we had last time out. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to sub somebody eventually, right?
Yeah, fuck.
I mean,
Minner round 1. You can get Gordon knockout round 3. Little Blaydes submission plus 1,000, and then Emmer's round 3 submission. Yeah, you're looking at a couple $1 million.
One of us is going to hit one of these weeks, and somebody in chat's going to hit it when none of us do, and it's going to be really unfortunate. That's But anyway, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Like I said, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't. We'd really appreciate it. As usual, I'm John Stargarian MMA. You can find me on Twitter, MMA Fox, with Luke, SWR_betting, Lags at Lags_the Capper, and C Hansen 10. Good luck this weekend. We'll see you next Wednesday. Take it easy.